The views expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of SAUGA960 AM or its management.
Live from Toronto to the world.
Josh!
This is Josh Holiday Live. Talk that rocks.
The public needs to be informed.
Josh might surprise us.
Got an opinion? Dial 647-6YO-JOSH.
When you hear him, you're like, what?
Josh Holiday Live starts now.
April Fools. April 1st, 2022. We are live. It's just after 3 o'clock. The telephone lines are open for your calls. 647-6YO-JOSH is the telephone number. A mixed bag of things to talk about today. Some light, some not light. A little bit later, going to pay tribute to a NHL play-by-play guy who is retiring after 51 years. And one of the best, in my opinion, my all-time favorite hockey play-by-play guy is retiring. We'll play some highlights, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Talk about doppelbanging. What is doppelbanging, you ask? Well, I will answer that a little bit later on. We're going to give you some ways to get out of speeding tickets. We will tell you, talk a little bit about dogs. I'm a huge dog lover. We can talk about that and all kinds of other stuff. I'm trying to track down some paper here. Oh, there it is. It's on the ground, on the floor. What the hell? Oh, okay. Well, I'm missing some papers, but that's okay. It is Josh Holiday Live, and you can tune in. You can call. You can do what you like. You can also get in touch on Twitter as well. On Twitter, I'm at Josh Holiday with 2 L's. Instagram, it's unfunny. People keep trying to make offers to buy my Instagram handle because they want the handle unfunny. I suppose we should talk about something that affects all of us here in Ontario, and that's the incompetence of one Doug Ford, perhaps the worst premier Ontario's ever had. And the issue we're going to have with the upcoming election, it's very close. The election is what I mean by it's very close is the election is very close to happening. The race is not exactly close. We're in a weird situation, and we've talked about this many times on the show, how most of the country is common sense and tends to favor democratic socialism is the system we've adopted. We're not exactly Finland or Switzerland, but we're closer to those Nordic countries than we are to the United States in terms of politics. And for the most part, Canadians are pretty common sense. And the problem is most Canadians are to the left, center left or left, and a lot less are on the right, but there's two parties on the left that end up splitting the vote, and they figured that out at the national level, and the Liberals and the NDP got together and decided, well, let's just get some stuff done, and they're doing that. The issue now at the provincial level is how do we make that happen for Ontarians so we don't have to suffer another 4 years of colossal failure, colossal damage from a Doug Ford premiership. And this is where it gets tricky because it's more about seats in Ontario. And if Doug Ford gets a majority, there's really nothing that either the NDP or the Liberals can do. So it's almost something we have to think about before the election. We talked about the polls and how when they did a poll about a month ago, Ford administration was at about 37%. And the other two parties were both, well, I say the other two parties, there's more than three parties, but the other two big contenders, your Liberals and NDP, were at 27 each. And you combine those, and it's much more support than for Doug Ford, and you add the Greens in there and the other left parties, and you see a pattern that most people don't want Doug Ford in power, but because there are more than two parties, that seems to be where we're headed unless we figure something out. And in this case, it seems like we need to figure it out before the election, figure out how we can prevent vote splitting. And the most popular idea that seems to be going around now is figure out in which riding the candidate from the Liberals or the NDP has a better chance of winning, and support that candidate whether you're typically a Liberal or NDP voter. And we've talked about this before, the issue of always having to vote against something instead of for something. But the problem with that is the problem with our electoral system essentially is that we don't have ranked choice voting. So we have three parties, and we have to prevent the party we don't want from getting in. We have to make a choice not based on who we specifically like, but who has the best chance of defeating what we don't like. In this case, Druggy Ford. So that's what faces us, and time seems to be running out. And I know in the past for national elections, sometimes there have been grassroots movements to do fairly localized polls and figure out in which riding which candidate has the best chance of winning, and making that information available to voters. And I'm kind of in the back of my head hoping something like that happens this time around, so we can vote strategically to prevent a real potential catastrophe. You look at all the damage that Doug Ford's done, and just the sleazy weaselness of his administration, not just COVID, but what's come to light a lot in the last, or has been in the news, I should say, the last week or two, is the very beginning of Doug Ford and his reign here in Ontario. He sent policy mandate letters to each of his ministers, sort of laying out what he wants to happen under his watch. And in the normal course of things, those things become public record and there's no big deal about it. But there's been a protracted battle over trying to get those documents to the public so we can see what his plan was. And the Ford administration is wasting a ton of money, your money, my money, on fighting for these documents not to be released. So there's something in there that makes him look bad. And I mean, it's not hard to guess what it is. The pandemic kind of threw him off course from what would probably have been a lot of cuts to education, healthcare, privatizing a lot of things, not helping the people as he promised or ran on. His populist platform was helping the little guy. Buck a beer, you're important. But in reality, Doug Ford's not trying to help the little guy. He's trying to help the wealthy guy, the developers, his corporate buddies. And you see that with everything he does, pretty much. The highways he's proposing, the transit, the housing, everything he touches And every decision he seems to make is guided by corporate greed and helping out the elites, the wealthy, not the little guy. And the sad thing is, and you see this in the States as well, you see people who are in red districts on the border of poverty, and they consistently vote for Republicans at the local level, the state level, the federal level, voting against their best interests. For the most part, Republicans are working against regular people, middle class, lower class people. They're working for big donors, for corporations, yet these people in red states, they're wooed over by conspiracy theories and social issues like, them gays is going to take my job. That's not happening, but it's that fear that drives them towards the Republicans who gin up these fears, and you see it all the time. And you're seeing it more and more during and since the Trump administration. All these crazy conspiracy theories and the election was stolen, blah, blah, blah. Just a lot, and I've seen scientific studies showing that there is like a brain difference between people who are conservative and people who are liberal. It's in the brain and the way they think, and a lot of conservatives are fear motivated. Their decisions are motivated by fear. And you even see that in Canada. There's radio shows here that spout all kinds of nonsense, whether it's climate change not being real or the election being stolen or Justin Trudeau's a dictator. Ridiculous nonsense. The trucker convoys. It's scary to hear media outlets or radio shows here in Canada spreading that kind of nonsense, disinformation, having on people who are on the fringe, not in the consensus. And we talked about this, not just about science, but about what's happening in the world. Generally, if there's a consensus among experts, tens of thousands of experts in a specific field agree upon something, why are you listening to the one guy who's not necessarily an expert and what he has to say? So if you look at climate change, for example, the vast majority of climatologists, geologists, people who are experts on climate and the environment say that climate change is happening and man-made climate change is happening. But then you have a radio show who gets some guy who's nowhere near an expert in climatology. For example, Tony Heller. He's a guy a lot of times the wingnuts go to try and spread climate disinformation. And he's been debunked everywhere. Not an expert, not even in the climate science field. But rather than listening to the vast majority of experts in the field, these right-wing nutbags listen to a guy like Tony Heller. I don't even think that's his real name. I think that's the name he uses to spread this climate disinformation. And if you hear him on a show, then you're listening to a show that's spreading disinformation. And you should take that show with a grain of salt. I sometimes wonder if the host of these shows that have these nuts on actually believe it, or they're just playing along to try and gin up listenership. It's hard to tell. If you want to get in touch with this show, where you'll hear truth, I like to say I'm part of a misinformation sandwich. I'm the meat of that sandwich, the reality, and the bun is the misinformation, either side of this show. So I try and give you the reality and try and balance things out. So you actually hear what's happening in reality, not this fantasy right-wing world. 647-6-YO-JOSH is my telephone number. You can call it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can leave a message. But if you're calling that number now between 3 and 4 on Friday, we can actually have a discussion, a conversation, because we're live. And if letters aren't your thing, the telephone number is 647-696-5674. So we started out talking a little bit about Doug Ford and his colossal failure as an Ontario premier. And it would be wrong not to talk about his most recent failure, because it's a huge one. And it was so predictable. You knew it was going to happen. Doug Ford, for quite a while, has been making decisions not based on facts or science, but on what benefits him politically, what will help him move ahead, get ahead politically. And it feels lately like he's been catering to lunatics like his daughter, who is an anti-vaxxer. Like, she's almost like a QAnon, like she believes in the pedophile thing. It's like, oh my God, just a dunce. And it's hard not to think that Dougie doesn't listen to her sometimes, and his decisions lately feel like he is catering to the small minority of people who are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, anti-vax, anti-mask, anti-mandate. There was a fork in the road about a month and a half ago, leading up to March break. What we could have done as a province is change the definition of what fully vaxxed means. Instead of 2 doses, make 3 doses the definition of fully vaxxed. Keep the passports at restaurants and everywhere else as an incentive for people to get that 3rd dose and keep the virus under control. Continue to do masking, because we knew it wasn't over and it was still happening. And at the very least, wait till after March break, or even a couple of weeks after March break, to get rid of masking in schools. You set yourself up for disaster when right before March break, you say, off with the mask, we come back to school, no more masks. After all the traveling that happens for parents and kids over the March break, good way to transport various versions of the virus cross-country, cross-border, and then bring it back and take those masks off and let it spread. And, of course, the predictable has happened, and we're in the 6th wave. And in the last week and a half, I've talked to more people who have caught COVID than probably in the last 2.5 years total. I play on I run a men's league hockey team, and last couple of weeks, every week there's been people who are like, can't come, I tested positive, and it's happening all over the city. It's crazy. It seems like it's almost at its highest peak since the pandemic began. And of course, we have mitigation. We have people who are vaccinated aren't getting it as badly, and we have a better handle on how to treat it. But child hospitalizations are going up. The ICUs are getting filled again, and Doug Ford just kind of waves it off and says, "Well, we got enough beds now. We can." Yeah. That's not the problem. The problem is, you're just kind of letting this thing run rampant and letting people do their thing. You're having no more incentives for getting fully vaccinated, getting at the very least a booster. you're kind of throwing your hands up in the air and saying, you know what, my election's coming. I don't want, trying to have it both ways, essentially. But I think in this case, there's a lot of people who are pretty frustrated with how he's handled this whole thing, especially lately. Like the exact wrong decision and not what the scientific advisors told him. There's been a lot of deception amongst him and his medical advisors. And yeah, we're in the sixth wave, and it could have been prevented. It could have been mitigated. May not have gone down entirely, but at least we would have kept that plateau going for a little bit longer. But yeah, Dougie's effed up. Dougie's effed up. He's got to go. We got to figure out how. Yeah. If you want to call, 647-6-YO-JOSH is the telephone number. You agree or disagree, or you want to add something to the conversation. We always welcome your calls here. Have a good chitter chatter. Even if you don't want to talk about Dougie, you want to talk about something else, something that's happened in your life, or you have a complaint of some kind, you can give us a ringle dingle dingle. I do want to say happy birthday to one of this show's biggest listeners and one of my favorite listeners. Turns 81 years old today. That is my mother. She's turning 81. Happy birthday. April, well, it's not April Fool's, but her birthday falls on April 1st every year. But she is truly 81 years old. And so happy birthday. We're going for a fancy dinner later. We have this habit of playing Wordle. I don't know if you've played that. It's an online word game. It's somewhat addictive. And hang on, we got a call here. Let's take this. I think I hope he's calling to wish my mom a happy birthday. This is Mark from Brampton. Mark from Brampton, are you there? Can you hear me?
Hello,
Mark. Can you hear me?
hello.
Mark. Okay, Mark, try calling back. I can hear you, but I don't think you can hear me. Call right back if you can. For some reason, Mark didn't hear me. I could hear him. Hopefully, it's just a phone thing. Anyway, so we're talking about the word game Wordle. It's addictive, and now there's another game. Like there's been various offshoots of the Wordle game, and there's another one called Hurdle, which is the one that has audio clues, and essentially you get a short snippet of the beginning of a song. If you don't guess it the first time, you can get a little bit longer snippet. And I thought today's was kind of funny, and I think I actually have today's one. Here, you listen and see if you can figure this one out. I think I got it on the very first little clip. Hey, now my guess, I'll play it again for you just so you get a chance. I haven't played it yet, but if I had to guess, I would guess that that's Rick Astley. Is it Together Forever? Never Gonna Give You Up. So let's see. I'm going to skip to the next one, get a little bit longer. Yeah, it is Rick Astley. So there you go. Okay. I think we have Marco back on the line. Let's try this here. Hello? Marco?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hey, how's it going, Josh?
It's going well, thanks. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you call a second ago and we had some trouble chitter chatting?
Yeah, but it was Mark from Brampton, so I don't think it was me.
Oh, okay. So you're Mark
anyway,
from Georgetown. Go ahead.
Correct. Yeah, with emphasis on the O because we're still talking about this, Josh. I just want to, you're giving, I totally agree with you as far as Doug Ford. Big difference there.
Yeah.
I don't know where he's getting his his direction from. It's definitely not from his own intellect, because I don't think he has much of that. But I mean, federally, it's the federal government. You know, I have 3 children in school, and to mask them up while having people come in from so-called all over the world, China, which is an apparent hotspot again for their own virus that's going on there. I'm not too sure about what's going on, and the Olympics that took place, and harping on our kids still having to wear a mask mandated. If they've traveled for March break, that was still a requirement. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not. But I mean, we need to move on. We're going to be taken over by China in the next 10 years if we don't get our heads out of our butts and really start rebuilding our economy and our way of life. Because, a cousin just blew his head off a week ago on my wife's side. And it's not good. And we can't keep pushing this narrative through that the mainstream media is pushing. I'm done with it, and I'm sure 75% of the rest of the population is. You mentioned about boosters. I know people that are boosted have their 3rd shot and got sick anyway. So if you want the shot, take it. If not, don't. If you want to wear a mask, wear 1, wear 10. If you don't wear one. Like, I'm tired of this micromanagement of society. It's got to end.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, and I think we can all agree that everyone's really, really fed up with the virus and what's happening. But I will say I don't think it's as black and white an issue as you make it out to be, and I think there's a bit of a misconception around the booster and what it does. It does, like we've talked about this with a expert who we had on the air a couple of weeks ago, but it does reduce transmission from 1.5 to 2 times in terms of spreading the virus, and it's not a preventative to prevent you from getting it altogether. It's to prevent the severity of the disease of the virus if you actually catch it. And yeah, there's a lot of people will get through with just kind of a flu-like symptoms, but it's a safeguard against getting very sick, and you never know who it's gonna hit and who it's gonna affect more than others. So I just think it would have been wise to, at the very least, incentivize getting that booster shot and encouraging people to get it. And I don't have kids, so it's again, it is harder for me to get inside the parents' mentality. I've seen it from both sides. Parents who are really, really frustrated that it's running rampant in the schools, and they don't really know how many kids have it or the reporting. But I totally understand wanting to get back to normal. But I think it's not a black or white thing. I think we can still gradually get back to doing things the right way. What are your thoughts? I'm sort of I always have this issue where I'm like, I really disagree with your opinion, but I think we're both good people. Does that make sense? I shouldn't be a talk show host because I like people too much.
Yeah, no. You mentioned also about incentivizing it by putting passports in. But what's the objective here? Is the objective to stop transmission, or to take people's livelihoods away until they do what the government tells them to do? I think it's the latter. And in a quote-unquote democracy, do you honestly think that that's the right thing to do?
Well, I think it's in the interest, like, government has to try and do what's in the best public interest of the most amount of people. And I don't think it's a huge hurdle for people to have to get a booster, and it's not like they're closing down restaurants or they're limited capacity. They're just saying, you know what, just to incentivize people trying to prevent this virus from spreading and from clogging up the hospitals. We want people to get boosted. And we also sometimes have to think about the people who aren't affected necessarily directly by the virus. They maybe don't catch it, or people who are fully vaccinated. But there's, when we hit these peaks in the ICU and we hit these waves, it takes up hospital space and it delays procedures, and there's been a real cost of human life, of people who have had to wait for cancer surgeries, wait for heart surgeries, wait for other kinds of surgeries. So I feel almost like we should be doing whatever we can to help our fellow Canadians and help everybody get through this. And you have to look at the broader picture of what happens in the ICUs. You or I, we may be healthy guys and we may get through it with no real issues, but there's a lot of people who will end up in the ICU, and it doesn't just affect them, but it means that hospital space is taken up by people who may otherwise have not been there, and people who could get surgery or examinations. They're taking up space essentially. So I don't think we're necessarily going to agree, but I definitely appreciate your opinion and you calling in, and I like to hear all sides of the argument as well. It is Josh Holiday Live. If you want to get on the phone line, it's 647-6-YO-JOSH. I want to come back with something just slightly lighter. You can still call if you want to talk about the Ford thing as well. More than welcome to. But I want to talk about my all-time favorite hockey play-by-play guy who is retiring this year after 51 years calling games. We'll talk about that when we come back.
Are you looking for a way to make a difference in your business? Check out your local Board of Trade or Chamber of Commerce. These community-based business organizations are positioned to help your business in many ways. They are the voice of business that advocate for you every day at all levels of government. They give you access to business associates, government officials, and a host of programs designed to boost your bottom line. For more information, call the Mississauga Board of Trade at 905-273-6151 or visit online at www.mbot.com.
Welcome to Sports Interaction, Canada's sports book, dedicated to giving competitive odds on the teams and sports that matter to Canadians. Hockey, football, basketball, golf majors, whatever your sport, SIA has you covered. Get more ways to play on every sport online at Sports Interaction, including the best live in play. Canada plays at SIA. Get in the game at Sports Interaction, Canada's sports book. Brought to you by Mohawk Online in Canada. Players must be 19 years or older. Play responsibly.
Calling all hockey fans. The Mississauga Steelheads are celebrating Fan Appreciation Night on April 9th and want to see you there. See your Steelheads take on Shane Wright and the Kingston Frontenacs in the team's final home game before the 2022 OHL playoffs begin. Take advantage of the Family 4-Pack where you get 4 tickets, 4 popcorn, and 4 drinks for $67. There will also be giveaways and contests throughout the game in which you can win additional prizes. For more information, visit MississaugaSteelheads.com or contact a Steelheads representative at info@MississaugaSteelheads.com.
The roof over your head protects your home and everything in it. When it's time for repairs or replacement, choose right. Choose better. With over 40 years experience, Better Contracting Services is the GTA's roofing and gutter specialists. Residential or commercial, we do it all, from repairs to replacement. Better Contracting Services are the pros officially endorsed by Mike Holmes. See why when you choose better. Visit bettercontracting.ca for a roof done right. The other guys are good. We're better.
No radio? No problem. Stream us live on SAUGA960am.ca.
You all know that thing you use to send text? Yeah! It also works for actual mouth talking. Get in on the conversation now. Punch 647-6-YO-JOSH to be heard. Talk that rocks. Josh Holiday Live.
It is Josh Holiday Live. And that's Motorhead, Ace of Spades. I play that because there's a really great television show. If you have Apple TV Plus, which I think the easiest way to get it is buy some kind of Apple product and you get it for a year. But there's a really great show on there called Severance. Kind of, it's really a tough show to describe, but Ben Stiller is directed a lot of the episodes and produces it. It has a great cast. Adam Scott is the main one, but essentially it's sort of a science fiction type thing, but it's not about space or anything like that. It's essentially takes place in what feels like present day, and they basically have a giant company that we don't really know what the company does altogether. It's a big, mysterious company, and people who work there make a decision to get severed. I don't mean they get cut in half, but they get a chip implanted in their brain that makes it so that when they're at work, they have zero memories or zero recall of anything outside of work. They only are aware of their work life. And conversely, when they leave work, they have zero knowledge or memory of what their work is or what they do in there. That's the very, 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 very basic concept, but it's just a really, really fascinating show, and really, really well done. And that song was featured in last night's episode, but that is neither here nor there. Check it out and let me know what you think. It's a fantastic show. I'm a big hockey fan. I'm a Leafs fan. And I think as far as the Leafs play-by-play people go, Joe Bowen's always been a favorite. I like what he brings to the game, the excitement, the energy. I think he's the best Leafs play-by-play guy, but my all-time favorite play-by-play guy is not a Leafs guy. It's a guy from the U.S., though not too far down the road, the Buffalo Sabres play-by-play guy, Rick Jeanneret. He is retiring after 51 years calling games. It's a long time. And I think I came to kind of know him and love him in, I want to say it was in the 90s. I used to have friends in London, Ontario, and I was out there quite often. And there was a music store there. I don't know what it was, like an A&M or one of those mall record stores. And they had videotapes. This was even before DVDs. And at the time and since, I've always been a huge fan of hockey fights. I love hockey fights, especially the old school ones where it was just a little bit more wild, a whole different time in the NHL. And so in this this record store that also had some videos to buy, there were these volumes of NHL hockey fight tapes, and they had professional packaging and everything. And so I bought as many as I could of the volumes. Some were missing, and it became apparent that the person making these tapes was based in Buffalo, because I would say 70% of the fights on these tapes were Buffalo Sabres. And it was in an era where the Buffalo Sabres had a pretty solid roster of guys who would cause trouble. You had Rob Ray. He was a big star of these tapes. And then you had Matthew Barnaby, who was just, really a clown, but very entertaining. He would get in fights, but he would be very sneaky about it, and he was sort of fun to watch. So, yeah, those are the two main characters. But then you had Brad May. You had a whole bunch of other guys. I think Peters was there for a while. So it was a Buffalo team that spent a lot of time having fisticuffs. And I love those tapes. And what made them special was just the way that Rick Jeanneret would call them, because he got as excited as anybody to watch the mayhem that was happening. And he's famous for a lot of goal calls, like the Mayday, Mayday. And when I think it was Brad May scored, but he's also famous for I'm gonna forget what it is. His La 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 Fontaine call. So anyway, I got these tapes, and they were this mysterious Not so, I don't think legally authorized by the NHL tapes, but somehow put in nice packaging and ended up in this record store in London, Ontario. And so Rick Jeanneret is retiring, and I thought I'd play a bunch of highlights of his calls. Some of them are just like random fights or mayhem, but it's entertaining, and maybe you'll get why I'm such a fan of his work. Here is Rick Jeanneret.
Now they start again. More shoving, and here comes Stevens trying to pile in there again. He'll have to be knocked out of the game. Oh, and Stevens goes after Ray from behind. He suckered him from behind. Scott Stevens jumped on Rob Ray's back, and they pile into the corner again. Lemieux, here comes Ray. He's after Lemieux. He wants anybody now. Ray, oh, he just popped Lemieux. He dropped him. Lemieux trying to get up, and Ray hammers him again and again. He's going to get him again, and now he just starts hammering him on the back of the head. He's ragdolling Lemieux.
Not get it out. Kept in by Kovalev, and he got leveled by Boston. Mayer at center ice, and Mayer trying to go after Spezza. Spezza doesn't want anything to do with it. Played back into the line, and everybody tearing up at center, and here goes Mayer after Spezza. Now Mayer gets grabbed from behind, and they all pile in there now, and Biron is looking for Emery. Here's Biron trying to get his gloves off, and Ray Emery wants to go too. Biron and Emery, they're back near center ice as they grapple, and everybody else is teeing off on one another. Emery fires a punch down on the ice. The two goaltenders go. Now here's Peters trying to get back in there again. Emery, and over comes Peters to grab Emery, and this is really going to get ugly now. Peters hasn't thrown a punch at Ray Emery. Now he does. Emery comes back, and now Peters starts teeing off on Emery. Ray Emery, with all that equipment on, knows enough to keep his head away from it as far as he can, as the officials are trying to get in there and break it up. Snow is hanging on to the crossbar, and here comes Shields. Shields says, oh no, you don't. I want to get a little piece of this action, and Shields wants Snow. Well, we've got everybody grappling, and Shields wants a piece of Garth Snow, but the linesmen get them apart. And now Snow and Shields, and here they go! Now coming across the ice was May! Snow and Shields, the linesman, trying to get them apart, and they want to go! Here they go! Shields firing punches at Garth Snow! They're right in front of the bench! Shields and Snow going at it! And everybody else is grappling, and this crowd is going bananas! Now the linesman will try to separate the goaltenders again, and Shields wants some more. Now this will only take about a half an hour to figure out. Barnaby, the big penalty now on Tuskey, gets leveled back there as he knocked out Barnaby, and May went flying in. And now here comes Barnaby after Snow. Barnaby down in the way, Snow in front of the net. Here comes Triple off the length of the ice to get him back. Barnaby got up and went after Snow. And Barnaby.
So you can understand some of the mayhem that were on those tapes. The one that he was just talking about there with Barnaby. Barnaby was on the ice looking like he was knocked out, and then he kind of looked around and he got up and went straight for the goalie and started punching him. But Rick Jeanneret, one of the best in the business, wasn't just known for his fighting calls. Here's some of his goal calls as well.
Get a little piece of this action, and Shields wants Snow. And now Snow and Shields, and here they go. Now coming across the ice was May. Snow and Shields, the linesman, trying to get them apart, and they want to go. Here they go. Shields firing punches at Garth Snow. They're right in front of the bench. Shields and Snow going at it.
Bananas.
Now this will only take about a half an hour to figure out. There it comes to the boards. Oates holding it in, taking away LaFontaine up to Mogilny. He's got a breakaway. Here's Mogilny. He's going right in. He shoots. He scores! Alexander the Great. In it goes. LaFontaine right in front of the net.
That's Alex Mogilny he's talking about.
Gives it there to Mogilny, flips it in front of the net, and shoved. He scores! Whips it up through center. LaFontaine's got a breakaway. Here's LaFontaine going right in on goal. Score! Oh, 'tis the season. La 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 LaFontaine. An incredible save. He robbed him. Call it copy. Robbed Elmore blind. Jason Woolley. Jason Woolley. The shot heard round the world. The shot heard round the hockey world. Like a hot knife through butter. Randy Wood ties it in 3. Miroslav Shakir, the devil does it again. Down is Bundy as Ray applies the coup de grace. Holy mackerel, roll the highlight film. Maxima Binikinov, what a move. Michael Becca, top shelf where Mama hides the cookies. O'Reilly ripped that one, top shelf where Mama hides the cookies. Maxima Binikinov, top shelf where Mama hides the cookies. Barnes, top shelf where Mama hides the cookies. Oh my! You're gonna want to look at that one again and again and again. Tim Connolly turned himself into a corkscrew. Magic with the miraculous save on Platts. Do you believe? Oh, brother, we are not worthy. Open your arms. Roll up like a snow angel. Jack Eichel, you are a freaky monster. And Monster Jack has Buffalo back in the lead on the power play. Mogilny in over the Montreal line and the backhand score! Alexander Mogilny, who says this guy is afraid to fly? He left a vapor trail. And cleared out to center ice to Pominville. Pominville into Ottawa territory. Pominville goes around Alfredson, cuts in front, scores! Jason Pominville.
There's the last one.
And over the line, here's May going in on goal. He shoots. He scores!
That is the legendary, the amazing Rick Jeanneret. He is retiring after 51 years as the Buffalo Sabres play-by-play guy. Just watching that makes me smile. It's just such energy, such enthusiasm, and no one will ever do it the same way as he does. Rick Jeanneret, we salute you. We'll be right back.
York United FC is back for a new Canadian Premier League season, and this is our time. The 2022 campaign begins on April 7th with a home game against Halifax Wanderers at York Lions Stadium, and we want you there with us. Single game tickets are now available, so get yours and be a part of this spectacular moment for soccer in our country. For more information, check out yorkunitedfc.ca and come on, you nine stripes.
I'm Jeff Woods, and I'm shining a light on music and the rock stars who make it.
He just was one of those people, he stood out.
He was a magic guy. He really was a magic guy. We all have faults. He had the same amount of faults as we all had.
This was before Led Zeppelin. Robert was full on. I mean, he was Led Zeppelin without the band behind him. He had the hair, the jeans, the whole thing, and he was amazing.
The Records and Rockstars podcast, heard around the world and yours to hear wherever you get podcasts. All the episodes from JeffWoodsRadio.com.
This is Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a wild ride with me every Monday through Friday night right here on SAUGA960 AM, where we're going to look into those subjects that put shivers down our spines, from the paranormal to UFOs in the sky and monsters looking in the forests. We'll bring you the top researchers in their supernatural fields. We get going at 10 p.m., so tune on in to Spaced Out Radio. We're together, my friends. We own the night.
Stream us live at SAUGA960am.ca.
You got something bugging you? You need to vent? This is your unfiltered megaphone. Dial 647-6-YO-JOSH now to be heard. Talk that rocks. Josh Holiday Live.
All right, we are winding things down here, Josh Holiday Live. You can call the telephone number even if you're hearing this show not on Friday between 3 and 4. Maybe hearing it as a podcast or on repeat. 647-6-YO-JOSH is the telephone number. You can also go to SAUGA960am.ca, and all the links to email, social media, all of the ways to contact the show are there. I want to thank you for taking time to listen, and we will chat again next week.
Turn on the lights, open the shades.
The show's over, but the conversation continues.
On Twitter at Josh Holiday, on the web at joshholidaylive.com, and hear missed episodes on your favorite podcatcher. Talk that rocks. Josh Holiday Live.
has been making decisions not based on facts or science, but on what benefits him politically, what will help him move ahead, get ahead politically. And